Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you all for being here. This conversation is about simple laws of supply and demand that apply to any product, not just drugs. If you impose price controls on a product, you get less supply. It's fundamentally true. It's as true as water rolling downhill. It's always true. So the question is, well, do we care? What are the second, third order consequences of supply going down? What does supply mean in this case? And so supply in the case of drugs doesn't necessarily mean less of a particular drug. That's not exactly what it means in this case. What it means is less future drugs. And so you get into this discussion of what will be. And that's kind of a point of contention. I appreciate my colleague, Mr. Peters, who did mention like the potential consequences. And then there's some disagreement on how bad those consequences are, I think. And sure, there's exemptions, there's carve-outs, and we're still of the position that the consequences are just too high. And my colleagues on the other side of the aisle have an unfalsifiable claim, which is that, hey, there's still going to be plenty of innovation. And it's an unfalsifiable claim because I have no way to prove an alternative form of history. I can't go into the future and show you a different history. I just can't. And so you can always claim that, hey, there was no consequences to this. Well, because of course you can't. You can't prove that. We can use our knowledge of economics and past history to show that, indeed, there's probably consequences. I would note that in, what was it, 1986, of course, they took that bullet point away. In Europe, where is it? In 1986, European firms led the U.S. in spending on pharmaceutical R&D by 24%. After the imposition of price controls in Europe, they fell behind. By 2015, they lagged the U.S. by 40%. So policy does matter, and you might make a moral case for it. So if you had all the pills and all the cures you'll ever need to cure anything ever, you might make a good moral case that the government should just buy them all up and distribute them as necessary when people get sick. You might make a good moral case for that. Sort of what happened with the vaccine, with COVID. Now, the thing is that's not the case. The truth of the matter is we are not at a point in human history where we've cured every disease. We are at a point where we need to keep curing diseases and need to keep investing in research and development. And everything we keep hearing from the people who actually do the work say that they're just going to do it less or they're going to do it safer. Now, what I mean by safer is economically and financially safer for them. So maybe Dr. Potts, you could comment on that. What kind of investment will this skew? How will this skew investments in the future? What kind of drugs will be innovated?
I think, to your example of looking backward, when I started, in the industry in 1999, everyone was screaming about how expensive statins were. It was insane for us to charge so much for these life-saving statins. How much are statins now? And HIV. I mean, we were planning. I remember hearing about it, I was younger, but hospitals to fill up with HIV patients, and then what we've done with AIDS drugs. So think about you have to let the time play out, but these prices do come down. All of my small molecules, I guarantee you that day, they have the recipe, and the day that goes off patent, you can get it from somewhere else. And I do applaud the IRA for what they're doing for making sure that if everything should go generic, we should celebrate things going generic. It means I've done my job. It means that 30 years from now, these drugs can be given out almost like the price of aspirin in a developing country. So I think you just got to see this history play out. Lung cancer, 1999, when I started the industry, everybody knew there was no point doing a lung cancer drug across the board. If you said lung cancer, they'd laugh at you, like they think of right now with GBM and pancreatic cancer sometimes. Now, there's been so many drugs in lung cancer, but it took, 2000 was the first lung cancer drug, Tarceva. It was an okay drug. Colorado developed that. Now you've got Tagrisso. You think of that's an amazing drug. It avoids chemotherapy. There's a lot of...
What I want to ask you guys, Potts, you can answer this, or Dr. Crowley, you can answer this. So there's different estimates from different studies. The University of Chicago study estimates 135 fewer drugs. I've seen hundreds of drugs. I've seen 15 fewer cures from the CBO. Either way, there's fewer cures, right? Supply goes down. That's the rule. The question is, what kind of cures? So from what you're hearing from industry, is it your more rare disease type of cures? What will be affected? What kind of research will be affected most by this?
Small molecules and rare disease. It's clear. It's already happening.
If I can add, Congressman, it'll be the most difficult diseases to treat, which are going to be the highest risk to develop, and the smallest populations of patients.
Is that childhood
most
oncology?
vulnerable.
Like childhood cancer drugs, things like that.
Pediatric cancer among them, yes.
You know, the irony is, it was just announced that the cancer moonshot, which is, you know, pennies on the dollar, a couple $2 billion of investment, when it takes almost a couple $1 billion of investment for many of these drugs to even make it to the market, period. And meanwhile, passing a law that makes it harder to even develop childhood cancer drugs, and I yield back. Thank you.